I'm going to explain to you how you can finance your new Audi A1 S-Line for £20 less per month than the equivalent Polo R line. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Volkswizard channel. Today's video is a review of a car that I've actually never driven before. It is the second generation Audi A1. It was launched in the UK pretty much exactly 4 years ago, and I remember at the time being super excited about the prospect of a new S1 because I've been a big fan of the old one, but unfortunately that didn't materialise and I kind of lost interest in the A1 because of that. But I felt it was worthy of a review today because it's an affordable first rung on the Audi ladder, and I think it looks pretty damn good in this S-Line Black Edition spec. So today's video will be the usual review with a walk around tour and a bit of driving, but a little difference is that at the end of the video I'm going to explain to you how you can finance your new Audi A1 S-Line for £20 less per month than the equivalent Polo R line. But let's get started and see how the A1 S-Line performs on paper. Before we get started though, I'd like to say a big thanks to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. It does mean an awful lot. If you haven't yet though, please do so. There's an icon in the bottom right of your screen. There's a link in the description of the video below, or just find that famous red button and click it. That would be absolutely brilliant. Okay, so the current Audi A1 range begins at £20,665, and that gets you the base Technic version. But we also have a Sport, we have a sportier S-Line, and we have the even sportier S-Line Black Edition, which is the one we have here today. Every single engine you can order is petrol and turbocharged, and all those trim levels begin with a 3-cylinder 95 horsepower engine they call the 25 TFSI. In every trim apart from Technic, you can also have that in 7-speed DSG as well as a standard 5-speed manual. Next up we have another 3-cylinder, the 110 horsepower 30 TFSI, which is available as 6-speed manual or 7-speed DSG in every single one of the trim levels. Only the S-Line and the S-Line Black Edition get the most potent engine. That's the 150 horsepower 35 TFSI, which is basically the 1.5 TSI Evo, and you can only have that with the 7-speed automatic. Sadly, the S-Line competition, which is the one I really wanted to drive, is no longer on the market. That had 200 horsepower and basically was a rival to the Polo GTI. Maybe it'll come back when the range is facelifted in 2023. Who knows, but I'd love to drive that. I probably should have driven that in the last 4 years, to be perfectly honest. Now, this test car is a 30 TFSI Black Edition S-Tronic automatic with 110 horsepower and 200 Newton meters of torque. If you've owned an Up GTI, that might sound a little bit familiar because it's the same 3-cylinder engine. It's detuned a bit with the power to 110 from 115, but it's got the same 200 Newton meters of torque. Unfortunately, even though it's still a small car, it's still 20% heavier than an Up GTI, and that really does affect the performance quite a lot. It's 1,200 kilograms, just a little bit over. The 0 to 62 time for an Up GTI is 8.8 seconds with a manual. This being an automatic, okay, it's down on power, a bit heavier. It should be pretty close, shouldn't it? 10.6, and that's actually 0.1 of a second slower than this car in manual. Is that the first time a DSG is actually slower than a manual? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Still, at least it's not the 25 TFSI, the entry-level engine. That takes 11.5 seconds to get to 62, which is the same whether it's auto or manual, which again is really weird. If you want more than adequate performance, the top engine, the 35 TFSI, does 0 to 62 in a very respectable 7.7 seconds. The 30 TFSI S-Line Black Edition, which is the car we have here today, costs £27,875 on the road, and that includes a £1,795 premium for being the Black Edition. Well, what does that get you over the normal S-Line? Well, you get the 18-inch Audi Sport branded rotor wheels, you get the black roof, which is a £425 option on the other models. You get tints, black mirror casings, and there's some black in the bumpers and actually in the sills as well, which I think is body colours on the other models. The free colour with the Black Edition is metallic, but it's a bit Marmite. It's Python yellow, and I guess you could say it's worth £575 if you want it, but I'm pretty sure most people won't. If you don't like it, then I'm not sure that Black Edition pack is actually good value, because if you just buy the normal S-Line, you save just under £1,800. For that, you can buy the really nice 18s off the S-Line competition for £750. You can have the black roof as an option standalone for, what's it, £425, and you can pick a metallic of your choice. It doesn't have to be Python yellow for £575. That's £1,750, and yeah, you'll still be quids in to the tune of £45. Now this car has got £3,720 worth of optional extras, so well over 10% of its total price. So let's have a look at those now. Okay, so what makes this Audi A1 worth £31,195 of your pounds? Well, first up, we have the technology pack. That's £1,545. The main feature of that is that you get an upgraded infotainment screen from 8.8 inches up to 10.1 inches, plus you get navigation. Once upon a time that would have been quite appealing, but because most people use the mapping apps on their smartphones and the A1 comes as standard with smartphone interface, basically Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, it's really not that appealing today, and I think an 8.8 inches screen is big enough for most people. So yeah, not that great a deal. You also get an upgrade from digital cockpit to virtual cockpit. Again, a little bit confusing on the configurator. Every A1 has got a digital instrument cluster, but it is quite basic. If you go for virtual cockpit, you get more functions. You can have full screen navigation. Well, that's assuming you're using the navigation from the car, because you can't display Apple CarPlay or Android Auto apps on the instrument cluster. So again, it's pretty pointless. You get Audi Connect, which connects your car to the internet. It's a little bit of a gimmick. It's fun initially. You can track your car maybe if it's stolen, if they haven't found ways of hacking that so it can't beam out the signal. But I think most people stop using it after a bit, and after the 3 years when you have to pay to connect the car to the internet, it's free for the first 3 years. I don't think really that many people bother. So yeah, tech pack, not worth it. Comfort and sound pack though, for £1,150, I think is worth it. You get the Sonos sound system. That's a new brand I've never heard of before, but it's replaced Bang & Olufsen. They've got a very, very good reputation, and it does sound pretty good. You get Audi Parking System Plus, which gives you front and rear sensors and a rear view camera, and you get heated front seats, which on a day like today are very, very useful. Also, we've got the Plus pack for £450. As well as the tints, you get climate control, which I think is a pretty good idea, and manual air conditioning on this car looks a little bit clunky, and you get a really nice interface with the aluminium knobs. You don't get the buttons like you get on the A3. You also get the front center armrest, which everybody loves. This car is in Misano red. That's a really nice retro metallic red that was used originally on the B5 RS4. That's the final option at £575. As I said earlier, you could have Python yellow for no extra, but I think when you come to sell the car, it will probably cost you more than £575 in what the car is actually worth. Right, now let's have a look at the outside of this Audi A1 S-Line Black Edition. Well, I hope we can all agree that this second generation A1 is a great looking small car. The first gen one wasn't bad, but being a little bit bigger, this one has a more grown up look about it, particularly when it's in the S-Line Black Edition spec of this one. Most importantly, you get those 18-inch rotor wheels, branded Audi Sports. The S-Line just gets 17s as standard. They've got 215/40 18 tyres. These ones are Goodyear Eagle F1 asymmetric 3s. Now, if you were to buy a tyre from Goodyear, you'd get the asymmetric 6 today, but they're still fitting the asymmetric 3 to this car, because when it was launched in 2018, that was the current model, and this tyre is homologated specifically for the A1, so they have to keep on fitting the one that they developed for the car. It's, I'm sure, a very good tyre going by the 5s and 6s I've driven on. There's some really nice details to this design. We've got very interesting LED tail lights. We've got a spoiler here that kicks up a little bit with these sort of flaps on the side of it. We've got some fake vents in the back bumper, but I think they're forgivable on a small car like this. There's no visible exhaust. We've got a bit of a diffuser down there. On the side, it's standard A1, apart from we've got this sill extension here stuck onto the normal sill. At the front, we've got LED headlights as standard. We've got the usual big Audi grille, and that's actually the only working air intake on this car. All this stuff on the side of it is completely filled in. And we've got the Audi Sport Quattro nostrils, which are a really, I think, nice touch. Right, let's now have a look inside. Okay, let's start off then with the door card. So down here we've got the Sonos sound system, as I mentioned earlier, part of the comfort and sound pack. We've got their branding on there. It's also on the tweeter on the dash top as well. Got metal tips on the window switches, which always brighten up a cabin. Nice hefty aluminium door pull there. Piano black here. A bit of padding there. A bit of texture there. Up here though, it is cheap, scratchy plastic, but I don't really have a problem with that on an A1. The range begins at £20,000 and there won't be many like this one that top 30,000. These areas are not much better on A3 and TT, and they've got RS models that can go well over £70,000. That's where I think that is a bit of a problem. Now, when I drove the new A3 a couple of years ago, I didn't realise it had pretty much this interior in it because I'd never driven a second gen A1. I did know the quality had come down quite a lot though in the A3. It was always a lot better than the A1. Now I'd say they're pretty much the same. So for an A1, this is perfectly acceptable. For an A3 and S3 and RS3, I'm not sure it is. So here we have sort of relatively cheap carpet, just like the A3s, but that's fine in here. We've got some decent floor mats with contrast stitching, stainless pedals, nice sill protector there. These are the standard seats with cloth and leatherette. You can pay extra, £600 extra to have microfiber, but these are pretty fine and that's really kind of grippy there anyway. We've got the S logo in there. Normal black seat belts, which is a bit of a shame, but there we go. Just get in and have a closer look at the dash then. So there are two things in here that I really like. Firstly, I love this aluminium trim. It reminds me of the trim in the Mark V Golf R32. I love the way the centre section is focused on the driver. It reminds me of an E30 BMW 3 Series, as does the parking brake. So we've got a normal parking brake. I think pretty much every car on this lowly MQB A0 platform has a normal parking brake, which is a bit of a shame because electric parking brakes of the modern age work really well. You never really have to touch them, so I would kind of miss that, but I'm sure I could get used to it. We've got a mechanical S-tronic shifter, so we haven't got the stubby shift-by-wire one, but it's okay, isn't it? Other than that, though, it does look just like an A3 in here. Okay, we don't have the clumsy Lambo vents on the top of the dash. They're integrated into the dash around the instrument cluster quite nicely, I think. To my eyes, they look better than the A3s. We've got this big section of air vent here, which I'm not a big fan of, but I think it's okay. The glove box is damped, but not lined. And yeah, it's okay. Got black headlining for that sporty look in here. So let me just turn the engine on. We've got this slot where you can put your key. So this isn't a keyless car in any way, which I think is perfectly fine. I really hate keyless when it only starts the car and doesn't get you into it. Keyless, fully like start and entry is fine, but there is a bit of a security risk. So this is fine by me. Just press the brake, turn the key, and we're off. Now, I wanted to talk about the climate control display. This is extra. It's part of the Plus pack, and it's really nice. It's got knurled knobs on it, and it's better than the one in the A3, which is just like buttons like this, really. So that's nice to have. Nice display, nice bit of colour. Yeah, like it. This is a 10.1 inch MMI upgrade, which it's a nice screen, but I think the 8.8 one would be perfectly fine. Down here we've got a few knobs. We've got drive select, which can't do an awful lot. As you can see here, you can just change the feel of the throttle drive system and the weight of the steering. That's all, so it's not particularly worth using on this car. We don't have adaptive dampers or anything. Got traction control off, start stop system off, hazards, and we've got parking system plus, which gives us the camera, front and rear sensors, which is really good even on a small car like this. Down here we've got USB-C, which can catch you out if you don't have the right cable, and we've got a blank for the 12 volt socket there, which is really nice. It's knurled aluminium. I'm pretty sure I made a video where I showed the one from an old A3, and it was knurled, and on the new A3 it's just black plastic. So this is better than the new A3, and that was probably an S3 as well. That was well over 40k. Steering wheel, nice, flat bottom, as used on a lot of Audis. Traditional buttons here. We've got normal cruise control down here. Paddles here that are just black plastic, but they feel quite nice because they're slightly recessed there where your fingers sit. We've got the virtual cockpit, not the digital cockpit, which is, you know, pretty nice to have, but you've still got these bits here that look a bit clunky where the temperature gauge is and where the fuel gauge is. We've got the new style headlight switch, though no knobs there, it just basically looks after itself. Oh, soft touch on here and all the way back here. That is luxury. So it's really weird. Clearly this is related to the A3 cabin, but I don't think the accountants have taken much out of it at this point. They have for the A3, and it's a really nice place to be. Right, let's get this in my driving position, which it won't be now because I don't know how to fiddle around with it. So let's try that. I think that's my driving position. It's a small car this, but can it accommodate a 6-foot adult behind a 6-foot driver? And now before I try and get my 6-foot frame in there, let's just have a look at the door card. Now, CarWow have got a problem with fake exhausts and fake vents, and they've got the stick of truth for that. Well, they need to start reporting on the downgrading of rear door cards because it's really bad. Manufacturers do this. Now on this car we've got lovely piano black here and some padding here. None of that's very expensive, but it's too expensive to repeat on the back door card, so cheap plastic here and totally unyielding plastic there. So come on CarWow, let's get a stick of truth for the door cards. Right, A1, often bought by young people. You might want to carry your friends around, so let's see how easy that is. The door opens quite wide, so that's good. And yeah, I'm in. I'm quite comfortable. Actually, knee room's better than I expected. I'm not too squashed in here. There's not much headroom, but there's enough. Just don't go over any bumps, really, because I might make contact. Yeah, it's good. Maybe not 3 adults in here, though there are 3 belts, so you never know. But yeah, that's good. Right, finally, let's have a look in the boot. The release is down here. There's the rear camera, and it's 335 litres. But so we've got a split fold seat, 60/40. You can lower this as well, which gives you the most room without any sort of penalty. But it's not a flat floor then. We've got a luggage net in this storage down here. So down here we've got the subwoofer for the sound system, and you can spec a spare wheel if you want, but this car doesn't have it. There's plenty of room down there for that, so it's not a bad boot. It's not particularly deep, but it does seem quite tall, especially with the carpet down there. Actually, finally, let's have a look under the bonnet. So we've got the release on the right side, which makes life easier. Have we got a telescopic strut? Guess. It's an expensive Audi, surely it has. No, just a keep fit strut just there. Anyway, there we have the 3-cylinder engine. I'm sure it's very closely related to that in the Up GTI. Does it drive like an Up GTI? Well, let's go and find out. Well guys, after the excess of the Audi RS6 event last week, it's great to be in something small, and I don't feel like I've really been downgraded that much. Sitting here, I've got a very similar instrument cluster. I've got an almost identical infotainment screen. I've got wireless CarPlay working perfectly. I've got my heated seat on, which I can even feel through this dead sheep that I'm wearing today. One big difference though is that there is quite a lot of road noise in this A1. And I wouldn't say it's common to the MQB A0 chassis, because the Taigo I drove a couple of weeks ago, it was pretty silent. It's so loud that I've been thinking I've got a window open, and it's actually so loud that if you do open a window, so the back window's open a bit, it doesn't actually sound any louder, so that's a bit of a shame. I've just closed it now. Now, on paper, this car's got very similar power and torque to an Up GTI, but as I said, it's 20% heavier, and it never feels as enthusiastic as that car, unfortunately. I don't think the gearbox helps either. Now, generally, DSG used to be good for extracting the most performance out of an engine. So if a car felt a bit leisurely as a manual, give it a DSG box and it felt perkier. But I don't think that's the case with this car. Now, these dry clutch DSGs, which aren't generally as good as the wet clutch ones, and they can't handle as much torque. They used to be quite jerky when they came out. I think maybe about 15 years ago. Well, I'm pretty sure they've backed them off now, so they're smoother, but they've lost some of the response, and there's this lull every time it decides to change gears that can get a bit annoying. And that might explain why the manual gearbox actually isn't much slower than this S-tronic. Actually, it's 0.1 of a second faster, which is a strange state of affairs. Something's definitely changed there. It's also a car you have to really think about when you pull out from a junction, because there's a lag from when you press the throttle to when the car actually goes. I'll press the throttle now, and it just takes quite a long time to get going. You find yourself accelerating when the car's still in front of you, if you've got to get out on a busy road, rather than when it's past you, because you know there's going to be a lag. Maybe you'll get used to that, but it just seems like a manual gearbox would be cheaper and nicer to drive. I drove this engine in the Tygo, similar power to weight ratio to this car, and it felt okay. The benefits of a small car there, guys, that would have been a lot of heavy panel damage in an RS6, I think. Let's talk about the chassis then. Well, in a nutshell, this car's clearly been designed to go around corners without much thought about ride comfort. It's got a very pointy front end. The back end seems to lean into corners a bit as well. We're on decent Goodyear tyres, which helps. Yeah, it's really good in the corners. The only problem is it's a little busy when it comes to ride comfort. We've got a rudimentary torsion beam at the back, which is never easy to balance ride comfort with, particularly on a car that's got sporty aspirations like an S-Line. When this car was delivered, it was on its normal tyre pressure settings. They're the comfort setting, which I've dropped them down to, which takes about 10% of the pressure out, and I'd say it is okay now, just about. It's not been banging and crashing, it just seems to be a little bit busier than you'd want it to be, but I think, bearing in mind it goes around corners like this, it's probably a price worth paying. The brakes are actually incredible. They're not massive, but they work really well. So if you're a parent buying a car for your offspring, then you would do much worse when it came to safety than the A1. We've got ESP, we've got front assist, we give you emergency city braking as well. Unfortunately, your offspring can turn the lane assist off very easily with this button, and it stays off throughout the journey, but it does come back again when you turn the ignition off. So it's not perfect, but it's a good car. So you might want to try the 1.5 TSI Evo. Might be a better match for the same 7-speed S-tronic dry clutch gearbox, but I think this 1 litre, which makes a great bargain 911 noise, is actually quite a nice engine. You just need to unshackle it from this fun-killing gearbox. So yeah, if you're thinking about buying one, try manual and try the auto and see which one you prefer. And then get out on some good roads and enjoy that chassis. It's brilliant. Well guys, so there we have the Audi A1. I'm a big fan of this car because I do like small cars. It looks incredible on the outside, the interior is spot on, and it drives better than you might expect. I'm not though a big fan of the black edition pack. I think packs should offer better value for money than ordering the individual items, and unless I'm missing something, I don't think this one does. So I just go for the plain old S-Line, and that's the car you can PCP for £20 a month less than a Volkswagen Polo. There are a couple of caveats here though. Firstly, there is a deposit contribution from Audi of £1,000 towards the finance. That's just basically a discount that you can negotiate off. It's only 3.5%. I think 5 to 10% should be quite easy to get off, particularly if you try somewhere like CarWow or Drive the Deal. The other caveat is the spec. Whilst they're both decently spec cars, one may lack something the other one has got. So just have a look very carefully. I'm pretty sure a little bit of optioning might fix any problems in that area. Okay, let's talk figures then. So the key point to all this is that bizarrely, over the 4 years and 10,000 miles, the cars depreciate at roughly the same amount. Both of them depreciate £14,000 over that period. And when you're PCPing a car, you're basically paying the depreciation. So if you equalise the APR between Volkswagen and Audi, the A1 will actually be very, very close to the Polo, and Volkswagen Group don't want that. So on their websites, they quote 9.2% for the Polo, 11.2% for the A1, which makes it over 4 years quite a lot more expensive. The RRPs, which I'm trying to avoid talking about in this video, it's very easy to be lazy and just talk about RRPs and say the Polo is like £1,500 cheaper, so go and buy the Polo. Well, actually, as I'm going to tell you, PCP wise, the A1 can be cheaper. The key to getting the best deal is to not get your finance from the manufacturer. Go to a broker. I've tried Magnitude Finance. I have no relationship with them. It's not a sponsored video. They've just got a really good website with a page where you put figures in and it gives you the monthly figure, which has really helped me work all this out. So if you go to Volkswagen and you want a Polo R line 110 DSG, so basically the equivalent of this car, you put in £2,355 deposit, you get a £500 deposit contribution. That works out at £360.78 per month. If you go to Magnitude Finance for the A1 S-Line 30 TFSI S tronic, basically this car but without black edition, that's £26,000 on the road. Get that £1,000 off the discount, so you go to Magnitude with about £25,000 to finance, and you put in the deposit of £2,355, you get a monthly of just £340.88 per month at an APR of 8.8. So there you go, guys. Audi for less than a Volkswagen. I think my work is done. As ever, guys, thank you for watching this Volkswizard video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.